Namaste, Srini. Prakash, can we start?
Sure, Binduji. Namaste, everyone. Welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing classes are on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective, carefully meticulously organized by Binduji. And we are on Chapter 3. The replays of all the earlier rooms are available in Clubhouse, or you can go to the links shared in the chat. One is on YouTube. The channel is called Advaita Retold, where all the talks are archived in series of talks coming from different chapters of either Bhagavad Gita or Avarokshanabhuti and even earlier classes on Upanishads. You can also access them on Spotify and Apple Podcasts in the links. There's also a book penned by Artemisia based on Binduji's insights from Advaita perspective. The title of the book is called Imaginary Door. It's available on Amazon. For housekeeping, I'm going to close the chat and hand raising for an hour when Binduji will be conducting the class, after which those channels will be open for further queries and discussions. Thank you, Binduji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Hari Om and welcome to all of you. Let me do my invocation. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsharishibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtibeda Vibhagine Vyomavat Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvante Divyaistavai Vedai Sangapadakramो Panishadai Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginaha Yasyandam na vidussura suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Na buddhi vedam janayet ajnanam karma sanginam. The last verse which we discussed. We should never attempt to make somebody who is not ready to accept the knowledge of what we are believing in, what we are studying also. This is what Krishna is telling, basically. Shankaracharya's commentary may be referring to the Vedic period, but if you read the lines from the verses as it is, karma sanginam, those who are, attached to or involved in action. Here the action is they are not interested in knowledge. They are only interested in action because they are interested in the fruits of action. So there is an attachment toward the fruits of action, and that is the reason why the expectation is keeping them revolving around the action. So thus, those who are arguing for the sake of argument because they don't want to get convinced or know the knowledge, they are also in the karma sangi, in the group of people who are addicted to the fruits of action because they want to win over you over a debate. Not that they are not willing to look into the logic of it, the philosophy behind it, and all those aspects which we are ready to share with them or their understanding. No. They want to pick points which are, from the empirical world and not ready to leave the empirical world for understanding this metaphysical knowledge. So don't waste your time. That's what Krishna is saying to us. Look, only people who are interested and who are regular, who are facing, your explanation with interest. Share with them the knowledge, not otherwise. With that, which I didn't complete yesterday, we will move toward the 27th verse. Avidwan atmyaha katam karmasu sajjate iti aha. That is avidwan, one who is not knowledgeable or the ignorant. Atmyaha. Kadam karmasu sajjate. Why is he getting engrossed in the action? That is what is going to be explained in the next verse. Prakrutehe kriyamanani gunaihi karmani sarvashaha. Ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. Two separate lines in the stark juxtaposition between each of them. Prakrutehe gunaihi sarvani karmani sarvashaha kriyamanani santi. The first line. All actions in every way are being performed by the gunas of Prakriti. This is a metaphysical truth, about which we saw that in our earlier shlokas. The gunas are the reason for the actions, and that actions which are performed are done by the Prakriti guna. Prakriti, and that verse which we studied there. Whereas the second line is talking about an empirical error, because of which the metaphysical truth is not understood by those who are caught up with the error. Ahankara vimudatma karta aham iti manyate. Those who think the self is thoroughly as I am the doer, is deluded by the ahankara. So the empirical error which we have to see is the I am the doer is the error, and it is happening due to ahankara, because the word ahankara itself is aham karta, is from there the word ahankara is coming. I am the doer. But that is due to a delusion. One whose self is thoroughly deluded. He is self, the Atma, but he is deluded by the Prakriti and the gunas and the actions. Therefore, he thinks I am the doer. This particular verse places metaphysical reality and the experiential error or the empirical error in direct confrontation with one another. There is no mediation, no qualification for that. The two stand face to face as Paramarthika and Vyavaharika, Satya and Mithya. Prakritehe, by Prakriti. Prakriti here as Maya or Ishvara Shakti is that is the material and instrumental cause for the entire phenomenal world. In the Advaitic framework, Prakriti is not an independent ontological reality as in the case of Sankhya philosophy, but as Brahman's own Shakti operating through avidya. keep these things in mind. These are all technical explanations. So without knowing these technical explanations, if we start trying to explain these things, we will be caught in the wrong foot by the opponent. The Prakriti, what we are talking, Advaitis are talking about, is Brahman's own Shakti. Operating through avidya. It needs avidya in the listener because of his non-apprehension. Then only the Shakti of Brahman can work as a Prakriti. Prakritehe mayaya. By Prakriti, that is by Maya. This is how the Vedas are referring to it. This generative establishes the true locus of Kartrutva, agency. The agency belongs to Prakriti and its gunas, never to the Atman. So Prakritehe is that. I am going each word in this verse and the coming verse, word by word, because each word is a topic for thesis by itself. So we have to understand the words in its full import before we understand and discuss about the total verse and what Krishna wants us to understand. The next word is Kriyamanani. Being done, being performed, or being carried out. The passive form is the philosophically decisive word. The grammatical choice of this verse, actions are not done, kriyante, but kriyamanani is the word used in Sanskrit. It was not used kriyante, which is an active agent, but are being done. Being done means kriyamanani. So, prakritehe kriyamanani. The passive indicates the Atman is never the true subject of action. Subject of action. Please understand. Karta. Shankaracharya reads the present passive participle as expressing the nityata, perpetual character of this truth. At every moment, continuously, all actions are being performed by the Prakriti only, never by the self. The continuous aspect of the present participle, kriyamanani, rather than the karta, kriyamanaha, karta, is a difference between the two verbs. This emphasizes that this is not an occasional or an incidental fact, but the invariable, ongoing metaphysical reality. So, this is the beauty of Sanskrit. With one simple alteration in the word, the whole meaning can change, but the verb will remain the same. Kriyante, instead of that, kriyamanani is what Krishna used to indicate this metaphysical reality. So, prakritehi kriyamanani gunaihi. By the guna, through the gunas. Both the meanings are applicable there. There are three qualities of Prakriti are Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. The proximate agents for all action. Shankaracharya reads Gunaihi as specifying the immediate causal mechanism. If Prakriti is the Upadana Karana, means the material cause, the Gunas are their Nimitta Karana, the instrumental causes. of the specific actions. There are 3 gunas operating in different proportions, produce the entire range of activity, whether it is human activity, animal activity, nature's activity, all of them. What are the 3? The sattva producing knowledge-oriented action. The rajas producing desire-driven actions. And tamas producing inert or confused action, lethargy, etc. In the 3.5, there was a word, prakritijair gunaihi karma kriyante. That is what is being referred. That it is prakritijair means born out of the prakriti, guna. The gunas are born out of the prakriti, and because of which karma kriyate. Karma is being done. So the verse there established the theoretical principle, which this verse now states in its full philosophical precision. It was introduced in the 3.5, but here in the 3.27, it is giving the full philosophical precision. Karmani, the next word, is a plural for the word karma, means actions, all actions. All actions means all actions what is happening in the cosmos. Subject of kriyamanani. What did the kriyamanani said? Being done. So being done, being performed or being carried out. Karmani kriyamanani is the subject. Karmani is the... So karmani as sarvani karmani. All action without exception. Physical, vocal, mental, you can include all karmas in it. The plural without qualifier indicate the universality of the claim. There is no category of action that escapes this analysis. Shankaracharya connects this to sarvashaha, which follows immediately after. Prakriti gunaihi karmani sarvashaha. It is an adverb. Sarvashaha means in every way, entirely, completely, in all aspects, all respects. Modifies the kriyamanani, that being performed. So being performed in every way by the gunas. That is how it will be read together. Sarva prakritiraihi, in all modes of manners. Sarvashaha eliminate every possible exception or qualification. Not merely most actions or important actions, but all actions in every possible mode are performed by Prakriti's guna. Known, unknown, willful, unknowingly, intended, unintended, you have to name it. They all fall into the Prakriti's guna. The adverb is Advaitic equivalent of Sarva Karma Sannyasa. That metaphysical level, if all actions in every way are performed by gunas, then the notion Atman as Karta is simply false. And when Atma is not the Karta, the Sarva Karma Sannyasa is for what? By the actions by themselves. Because Karta is not there. And it is being done by the gunas or the Prakriti gunas. This is the time when the the most crucial word in this verse comes up. Ahankara Vimudatma. Please understand this word. It is a very important word. Looks very simple and straightforward. Shankaracharya goes in depth for explaining this. Ahankara. In English we will say the ego sense or the I-making function. The false identification of Atman with the Andakarana. That is the Ahankara. Vimudha. V plus Mudha. Mudha means deluded. V plus Mudha means thoroughly deluded or completely confused or utterly bewildered. Atma. Self, being, etc. So, the compound, when you put all the three together, Ahankara plus Vimudha plus Atman, becomes Ahankara Vimudhatma. What does that simple meaning say? One whose self is thoroughly deluded by the Ahankara, or one whose being is completely confused through the ego sense. In Sanskrit, the Bahuvrihi will be appearing like that. He whose Atman is Vimudha by the Ahankara, such a person is Ahankara Vimudhatma. Now Shankaracharya is unpacking each element with precision in this one. That is why I said he has gone the extra length to bring his philosophy Advaita in this word. Ahankara. First let us take that word. It is an Andakarana vritti. It is a mental modification or thought process that generates the sense, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer, etc. Shankaracharya explains this as Ahankara as Atmani Anatma Bhava Adhyasaha. Atmani, upon the self. Anatma Bhava, non-self qualities. Adhyasaha means superimposition. So Ahankara, Atmani Anatma Bhava Adhyasaha. That is the superimposition of the non-self qualities upon the self. It is a mechanism of adhyasa or superimposition in its most concentrated form. The aham that falsely appropriates kartrutva, the doership. The I that falsely appropriates the doership onto the self, due to superimposes onto the self, which is kartrutva is the qualities of the non-self. So the superimposition of kartrutva or the doership, which is the non-self qualities, upon the self which is ever pure and eternal, on that this changing and ephemeral nature of the doership, that is superimposed on the self, which is nitya and shuddha, which is eternal and pure. It cannot be having doership as the action changes. So I am walking now, so I become a walker. I am sleeping now, I become a sleeper. A sleeping person. Or I am an eating person. Like that, the actions are changing. and I say, I am now eating, I am now sleeping, I am now walking. The actions are changing, but I am not changing. But still, due to the superimposition, I become the doer of eating, sleeping, walking, etc. This is exactly what Shankaracharya has defined it as Atmani Anatma Bhava Adhyasaha. The next word, Vimudha. Visheshena, Mudhaha, means intensifies the Muda. Not merely confused, but thoroughly and completely, utterly deluded. Even when he knows that it is not, cannot be used, or it is not the case, even when he has the knowledge from the scriptures that Aham Brahmasmi, I am Atma Brahma, Prajnanam Brahma, all those things we have heard, all the 9 Upanishads we have studied, all Aparokshanubhuti, all of them have been studied. Still, thoroughly and utterly confused, deluded, to think that we are the empirical self or the limited self. The definition given by Shankaracharya for Vimuda is Viveka Jnana Rahita. Viveka Jnana Rahita. Viveka, the first part is the knowledge between Atman and Anatman. Atma, Anatma, Viveka, that is how it is said. And Jnana is the knowledge. Rahita means completely devoid of the discriminating knowledge between Atman and Anatman. And it gets intensified by the prefix vi, visheshena, indicates that the delusion is not superficial or correctable by mere argument, but it is the deep-rooted mula avidya, or the root ignorance, cause of ignorance, deep-rooted mula avidya. That constitutes the samsara itself. We do not realize we are Atman, Brahman, we are ever free, eternally free. We are never, ever the doer or enjoyer. They are enjoyment, all those aspects is doership, enjoyership, it's all due to the gunas of the Prakriti of the Anatma. Anatma qualities, Atmani Adhyastha, superimposing on the Atman, we think Kartaham, Bhoktaham, I am the doer, I am the enjoyer. This comes in the introductory commentary for the first sutra of Brahma Sutra. Yushmadasmat pratyego jariyo vishay vishayino tamma prakashavat viruddha svabhavayo. Like there it is like there he will say this adhyasa aspect of. Then there is a word Atma also in it. Ahankara Vimuda Atma. The Atman here refers the empirical jiva. The Kshetratnya as apparently bound by Prakriti through avidya. Kshetratnya is the one who knows the Kshetra. Kshetra means body, or the one in which he is present. He is expressing himself through that. Apparently bound by Prakriti. It cannot be bound by anything because it is sarvagata. It is all pervading. sukshma. It cannot be, there is nothing subtler than that. So, the subtle thing cannot be engulfing, it can be engulfed by something gross. It is the other way around. The gross can be engulfed by subtle. But as if bound by Prakriti through avidya. So the three-word compound thus describes the jiva in its samsaric condition, or Atman, which is in reality akarta and purna, appearing as karta and apurna through the superimposition of ahankara. Then kartaham iti manyate. Now that three words Shankaracharya is explaining. Karta, doer, agent or performer, the one who acts. I am the doer. Karmanam aham karta iti abhimanyate. He convinces himself that I am the doer of actions. Karta is the precise philosophical term for the adhyasta, or the one who is superimposed, or the attribute. Kartritva, the doership, is never truly on Atman, but is always a superimposition from ahankara. The use of karta as a bare predictive nominative without qualification or hedging captures the unqualified confidence of the ahankarin, the one who is having the ahankara, in his false identification. He does not merely feel like he is the doer, but he is also convinced that he is the doer. That is where the mistake is. Just as we say, through Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, we should get convinced that we are not the body, mind, intellect. Here the reverse is happened. He is convinced he is the doer. And it is happening due to the ahankara. Because we think that we are the individual, we are the waker, we are the dreamer, we are the sleeper. And when we are told that we are knower of the three states happening in our consciousness, so we are the consciousness or awareness in which the waking is appearing, the sleep is appearing, the dream is appearing, and you are knowing these three appearances happening in your knowledge. So, tebhyo vilakshana sakshi chinmatroham sadashivam. You are the different from all the three because you know the three, therefore you are to be separate from the three. Even when this is told, the conviction is that I am the doer, I am the waker. That aspect, that I am the waker, we are never able to shake up. Even we have the knowledge, we are not the waker alone. When I am the dream, I am not the waker. So I cannot say I am the waker even in my dream. No. In the deep sleep, neither waking nor dream is not there. Still we say that, oh, I had a good dream, I had a good sleep, I am the waker. See, that convincing nature of the doer. I dreamt as a dreaming is an action. But you may say I am awake, I am in waking. Because we don't say that we are in waking. Because we assume that is our natural self. But this nature, the waker, having associated and identified with the waker, we say that I dreamt as if it is a action of the waker to go into dream. And I slept well. Who? The waker slept well. That is what the waker says. So all the doership of the dreaming and the sleeping is owned by the waker to make up a story that I am the real one. The waking is the real one. So he does not feel merely he is not a doer, but he is also convinced that he is the waker or the doer. This is the biggest hurdle to be successfully uneducated, unwind, we have to uneducate ourselves that we are not the waker. Then why do we say that in this verse there is karta aham iti manyate? Aham, the I word that constitute the entire problem. In the whole experience, consciousness, awareness and everything in the empirical world, one word is what constitutes the entire problem for us. And that is the false aham. That appropriates kartrutva. That aham, Shankaracharya reads it as Deha Indriya Manas Ahankaras Samuha, the aggregate of body, senses, mind and the ego sense, with which the Atman has falsely been identified. The metaphysical tragedy of samsara is concentrated in this single syllable aham. The infinite, eternal, non-dual Atman mistaking itself for a finite, temporal, relational ego. What more can we say? Even if it is educated, even if it has been told by Upanishad, the explanation has been done, everything is available. But the convincing has not taken place. The conviction that I am not the finite, temporal, relational ego, but I am the infinite, eternal, non-dual Atman. That knowledge is not becoming a reality. It is becoming a subject of my understanding or a theory which I have heard and understood. Logic I have understood. I have understood every explanation I have understood. But I am not convinced about it. Who can convince us if we are decided not to get convinced? This is why Krishna said in the previous verse, Na buddhibedam janayed ajnanam karma sanginam. Never confuse the one who is deluded thinking he is the doer. Because he is convinced. So how can you make him not convinced this thing, to say, remove his conviction and make him understand that he is not tadattvamasi, the prajnanam brahma, I am atma brahma, sarvam khalu idam brahma. When that is being told, I'm not accepting it. Because I'm not experiencing it. Some people will say, I'm not seeing atma or brahman. I should know, like a object. In fact, I think in some of the clubhouses also they said Atma is an object. Atma can be known as an object. Who will know a subject as an object? We are talking about a subject. Can a subject be ever an object? No. So, karta aham iti manyate. Iti means thinking thus. I am thinking that I am the doer. It marks the content of the false conception. Iti means here. In this particular context, iti means it's a false conception. It is the mithya pratyaya, false cognition, whose content is kartaham, the equation of aham with the karta. I am the doer. Manyate. Man means to think, to believe, to convince, to regard. That is the word. Man is the root. Manyate means it is third person singular. So he thinks, he believes, he conceives, he regards. The middle voice is, this is an Atmanepada, philosophically significant, because the thinking is self-referential, Atmanepada, or self-reinforcing. This is an action which is not being done on anything external. What is being done to yourself, or you are the subject and the object of it. Self-referential or self-reinforcing. The ahankari, the one who thinks about himself, the thought that I am the doer is a thought about the very thinker. He is a thinker and he is thinking that I am the doer. Manyate, Shankaracharya says that adyavasyati, firmly determines, conclusively decides. It is not a tentative or uncertain belief, but a firm, settled conviction. The present tense indicates its continuousness. The ahankarin is perpetually engaged in the self-misidentification. So since we have now gone through each word of it, the first paragraph says, Prakrite gunaihi karmani sarvashaha kriyamanani, is an Advaitic axiom of kartrutva stated with maximum precision. The passive kriyamanani, as explained, the passive indicate that Atman is never the true subject of action. Removes the Atman from the domain of the agency entirely. Actions are not performed by anyone in the ultimate sense, but are happening within the Prakriti. They are the nature's exhibition. There is not an activity going on. Just like the wave is an activity of the ocean, we cannot say that. Wave is a behavior in the nature of ocean. There is no agency. Same sense, happening within Prakriti through the interplay of gunas, the sattva, rajas, tamas, when the three of them interact between themselves. The three qualities are there in the Prakriti. And they interact between each other. And their interaction appears to be an activity by itself in the Prakriti. The self is a sakshi only. But when the self misunderstands it to be he doing it, then this becomes the false conviction. Shankaracharya reads this as the Paramarthika truth, the absolute reality in which there is no karta at all. Atman is nishkriya, completely actionless. And what appears as action is the self-movement of Prakriti within the luminous presence of Atman or Chit. Like in the presence of the sun, the life comes up on the surface of the earth. The plants start growing. People and animals and birds and everything start becoming active and agile. Sun is just shining. It is not that it has stopped shining. It was shining even otherwise. It was shining even in deep sleep, not only in the waking. It is shining in the dream also. But when it is shining in the dream, it is not shining in the waking. When it is shining in the deep sleep, it is not shining in the waking and the dream. Just as when it is shining over Europe, it is not shining over some other part of the world. If it is shining over Australia and Asia, it is not shining over the US or South America. But that doesn't stop the sun from shining. But activity will be in the place where the shining is taking place. Same phenomenon, the Paramarthika truth, that the absolute reality which there is no karta in at all. Because Atman is nishkriya, completely actionless. And what appears as action is the self-movement of Prakriti within the luminous presence of Atmachit. This is the Advaitic refusal of Swabhavika Kartrutva. We heard the word Swabhava in the Mandukya Karika. Esha Devasya Swabhavaha. Don't confuse that Swabhava with the Swabhavika Kartrutva of the Prakriti. Tendency for us to catch on one word and apply it to in a wrong place should be avoided. The Swabhavika Kartrutva is the intrinsic doership of that Sankhya assigns to Purusha and Mimamsa assigns to the agents of rituals. But Advaita refuses Swabhavika Kartrutva on the Atma. There is nothing, there is no intrinsic doership in the Atma. Intrinsic doership is not there in the Prakriti also. Because Prakriti is inert. It cannot be active. But gunas are present in that. The gunas interaction is not an activity. The self, when it shines on that, or the suprakasha, or the self-luminous nature of consciousness, when observes the three gunas, they appear to be interacting, giving rise to actions. Ahankara Vimudatma, the next one. The most precise technical description of the mechanism of samsara. The sequence is Prakriti acts through guna, which is in the andakarana, inner organ, is the proximate site for this activity. That creates the ahankara. So Prakriti acting through gunas in the andakarana creates the ahankara. The I-making vritti. It is not the ego. See, a lot of people mistake ahankara or the sense of I when we talk in Advaita as the egoistic egoistic activity. No. Because that has become a misplaced usage of the term ahankara. Aham karoti iti ahankara. Not that the ego sense that I am greater than you, or, it is, or the whole world belongs to me. The whole world will listen to me. I am the supreme, most powerful leader of the whole world. These type of things are not the ahankara we are talking about here. It is the ahankara means the I making vritti. The vritti means is a modulation of the mental function, which generates the thoughts, and that thoughts is giving rise to a sense of I-ness in the antakarana, in the inner instrument, where it divides itself into four: mana, buddhi, ahankara, chitta. And this activity as mind is now superimposed on Atman. The pure witness Sakshi is falsely identified with the ahankara through adhyasa, superimposition. And this results in the ahankara vimudatma. Now it's clear. The Atman apparently bound by the ego sense. That is the meaning of the ahankara vimudatma. Shankaracharya emphasized that this is strictly an adhyasa, a superimposition, not a real transformation. Atman does not actually become karta, but appears to be so through the cognitive disorientation or distortion of the ahankara. Just as the rope appears to be a snake without actually becoming one, the Atman appears to be the doer without actually being so. This is a very important aspect which we can never forget about it. When this happens, what actually happens is that kartaham iti manyate. The concentrated expression of the mula avidya, the root ignorance, that constitutes the jiva's bondage. The entire chain of samsaric existence, karma, karma phala, janma, mrityu, punarjanma, is all sustained by the single false conviction that karta aham, I am the doer. If this conviction dissolves, that means if Atman recognizes itself as akarta, non-doer, the entire chain dissolves simultaneously. The chain is Mula Vidya, constitutes of the bondage, giving birth to karma, phala, janma, mrityu, punarjanma, etc. All of them will dissolve immediately, simultaneously. This is why Atmajnana is the direct and complete and the only means for moksha. Because this is the only one which attacks the samsara at its root. And once it is there, yadgatva na nivartande tadhama varamam mama. Having done that, there is no coming back into this root. The false ahankarta identification, rather than merely modifying or purifying the actions that follow from it. Karma Yoga purifies the antakarana but does not dissolve the root conviction. Only Atmajnana, the recognition that na kartaham, akarta atma aham, dissolves it completely. Finally, Shankaracharya reads the juxtaposition of the two halves of the verses as Vivekasana, Viveka Shasana, Viveka Shasana, a teaching of discrimination designed to produce the very vichara that leads you to jnana. By placing the truth Guna karmani kurvanti. Gunaha karmani kurvanti. And the error, karta aham iti manyate, that I am the doer. Both of them are kept side by side without comment. Krishna invites the Viveki to perform the discrimination himself. He has given both the statements. To see that conviction, I am the doer, is simply a mithya in the face of the truth that gunas alone perform all actions. This discrimination, kartrutva mithyatva viveka, is the first step in dissolution of ahankara and the dawning of akarta jnana, akartrutva jnana. The verse is thus simultaneously a philosophical analysis, prakritehe gunaihi, a diagnosis of bondage, ahankara vimudatma, and an implicit invitation to liberation, na kartaham. The three dimensions of a single Advaitic teaching presented in two padas of unparalleled compression and precision. There is not much to tell because I covered the entire Shankaracharya Bhashya, but I'll read the sentences and tell the meaning. Prakritehe, prakritihi pradhanam sattva-rajas-tamasam gunanam samyavastha. Prakriti is the primordial principle, the state of equilibrium of the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Pradhanam is a primordial material cause. Samyavastha is the balanced condition of the three gunas. In this state, no activity appears. The gunas remain in equilibrium. When all the three gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, when the samyavastha means the balanced condition, there is no activity. But when disturbed, manifestation begins. Thus, Prakriti becomes the basis for all activity. Action produced by gunas. Tasyaha prakritehe gunaihi vikaraihi karyakarana rupaihi kriyamanani karmani. By the gunas of that Prakriti, through their transformation in the form of body and senses, actions are performed. Shankaracharya identified the mechanism of action into the following. Gunaha are manifest as body, senses, mind and organs of action. And these are all called karya karana, effects and instruments. Thus, the entire apparatus of action belongs to the Prakriti. That is our body, senses, mind and organs of action are all of Prakriti. We are not that. The self is not involved. All actions without exception. Laukikani shastriyani cha sarvashaha sarva prakarehi. Whether worldly or scripturally enjoyed actions of every kind. Whether it is laukika, that is by guna. Whether it is shastriya or ritualistic, that is also by guna. Thus even Vedic rituals belongs to the Prakriti only, not for the self. The self doesn't need Veda, nor the injunctions of the Veda, nor the do's and don'ts of the Veda. Etra Veda aveda bhavati. Ahankara vimudatma, we discussed that in full details. Karya karana sangadatma pratyaya ahankara. That is pratyaya. What is that? Ahankara is the notion, pratyaya. That aggregate of the body and the senses is the self. The Shankaracharya's definition is that Karya Karana Sangada, the collection of the body and the organs. Atma Pratyaya, the belief that this collection is oneself. Thus the error of superimposition or adhyasa. And the deluded inner instrument, Tena Vividam Nana Vidam Mudaha Atma Andakaranam Yasya. Through that ego, the inner instrument, mind, becomes deluded in various ways. Mind becomes confused because it takes the body as the self. It attributes actions to the self. Thus, the mental apparatus produces an illusion of agency. I am Karya Karana Dharma, Karya Karana Abhimani. This person identifies with the properties of the body and the senses. The Karya Karana Abhimani. He identifies with that. Body acts, mind observes, ego appropriates, and then thereafter the person concludes that I am acting. Thus, the attributes of Prakriti are falsely attributed to the self. The false conclusion of doership. Avidyaya karmani atmani manyamanaha. Through the ignorance, he attributes the actions onto the self. The ignorant causes superimposition. Action of gunas are superimposed or attributed to the self. This is the fundamental error. The claim of doership, tat karmanam aham karta iti manyate. I am the doer of the various actions. That is how he thinks. And this is the root of samsara. I am the doer. Karma, merit, demerit, birth. But when knowledge arises, this illusion collapses. Action continues at the level of Prakriti, but the self remains untouched. He becomes a witness. He knows that I am no more the body, mind and intellect, and where the functions are going on. He observes his body, mind and intellect functioning, and therefore there is no attachment. There is no love, hatred, good, bad. All these dualities will come to an end. Why does the teaching appear here in the Shankaracharya places this verse after the discussion of Loka Sangraha. The wise person acts in the world but knows action belongs to Prakriti and the self is unaffected. Thus, the action of the Jnani remains non-binding. Therefore, this Advaitic resolution, this teaching resolves the apparent contradiction why the Jnanis may act. Yet the self remains actionless for them. It is a internal reference. It cannot be seen from outside. Because he is not identifying with his body, mind and intellect as I, the self. He knows that the I which is being told by the mind is for the body. But the true I is the one which knows that the mind is saying I to the body. He is aware of that. Therefore, from his point of view, even when the body is functioning through the physical sense organs and the organs of action and all, he is a Sakshi from within. He knows that the body is transacting through the words of I, etc. And the I is referred only to the physical Prakriti and the guna dependent Prakriti of the body, mind and intellect. The true self, Atma, not the Aham. The Atma is a Sakshi. Therefore, the gunas perform in all actions. The ignorant say, I act, but the knower sees only Prakriti is acting. Sorry, I could do only one verse today. I stop it here. Tomorrow we'll do the 28th verse, which is also part of the continuation of today's verse. But that also is a very important. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyavada.
Thank you very much, Binduji. I've opened the chat and hand raising for any follow-up questions or discussions. Would I be right if I say, Binduji, this is the pedagogy of ego dissolution?
Absolutely. Namaste, Venkat.
I think the session was crystal clear today. It's sort of Sarvashaha means everything, any action, it belongs to the Prakriti. This means all the actions of Gnani and Ishvara also part of the Prakriti.
Yes. Ishvara is also part of the empirical notations which we use. Even though it may say that Ishvara is the Janmadhyasya creator, everything from the what you call the theological point of view, but from pure Advaitic point of view, even Ishvara is not in the absolute sense coming out of that, but it is in the empirical sense. Therefore, it becomes part of the empirical world.
So I think this is important, distinction, right? Because we did cover from a Agnani point of view. Now the Sarvashaha brings the domain of Ishvara and domain of Gnani. All that is spoken about in the earlier verses as a, Sangraha, right? Loka Sangraha.
Yes.
All that is completely in one brush painted straight up.
Right.
Now, this order, disorder, all that is again in the domain of Prakriti.
Yes.
So there is no guru, there is no shishya. All that is
Everything because, see, that is why that word, that mantra from Taittiriya, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha, is the place where the absolute is. Because the mind needs words. So guru, shishya, Veda, teaching, the ego, the self, the Brahman, or the Ishvara, all of them are in the empirical domain. In the absolute, avyavaharyam, there is no transaction possible because no words will operate there. Nor can mind have an access there because mind operates only when the words are available. Without word, mind is not a mind.
Okay. Now, in the later part of, session today, you covered certainly that aham as a superimposition, right? That led to the, that Vimudatma, who thinks I'm doing, versus the aham which is purified, knows I'm not doing. Hence again, this understanding also part of Prakriti.
Yes.
So really nothing happened. It's just a reversal that simply put that variation under rest.
Yeah, that's why see that every notion in the mind that I have to do this or I have to achieve that or I am Brahman. So I am Brahman, there you cannot be true. I am Brahman even though we are saying that Aham Brahmasmi. But in reality, even that usage is in the empirical, in the Prakriti, within the Prakriti only. Because, for example, I'll tell Venkat, in fire, only fire can be there. Or in the space, only space can be there. Anything which is appearing in the space is not separate from space. Only when they have space in that, they can appear in the space. But because they are appearing in the space doesn't make them separate from space. But when we do the ignorant aspect of that in looking into we feel that space is separate, the objects are separate. We are not able to see the space and the object in one medium because of our ignorance or limitations, sense or prakriti, because of the nature of the prakriti, because sense organs are part of the prakriti. So when we are using through prakriti for looking at it, same, the consciousness, not the consciousness or the awareness or the intellect or the knowing which we know as a mental function or an intellectual function or a neuron triggered things. No. There is something called Shuddha Chitta. Not Chitta, but Satchidananda. Even Satchidananda are the words indicating toward that. Like how we discussed in detail about Satyam, Jnanam, Anandam, Brahma. That three words, but independently they don't indicate Brahman. When the three operate simultaneously, then it indicates at place where it is Brahman. Same way, this is a Vastu. That absolute is cannot say a matter, is something from which there is no possibility for another thing to be present in it. Therefore, it is infinite in nature. It is consciousness, not as per the consciousness of the mind and intellect, etc. But it is that with which even we know about mind, intellect and the neurons and everything which is being known by us. Everything is known because of that. Knowing takes place in the mind, but mind by itself cannot know. Otherwise, it should be knowing what is deep sleep. It is not knowing what is deep sleep. It knows that I knew nothing. But then one more aspect about it is that is the only truth. Truth, the definition of the truth is that which never undergoes any change or that which doesn't change. That is the only thing which doesn't change in the entirety. Everything else is changing. Space is changing. Everything inside the space is changing. Consciousness, which we know in the mind, the intellect and the neurons and etc. are also changing. The changeless one consciousness in which there is no other thing other than consciousness is what is called, what we term it as Brahman or Atma.
Yes, Pindarji. Then when the whole this concentrations get dismantled, what remains is that pure knowing, maybe pure eliminating, and vastness of it. That's about it.
you have used the term what remains. I cannot agree to that word. Because things which you are removing are not present at all. They appear to be present because the mind intellect is now construing they are there. That has to be negated.
That's a minimum vocabulary. What else can we say then?
That is why Muni Bhavati. We cannot say anything, Venkat.
Just smile.
Yeah, smile.
Okay.
That smile is the smile of happiness or bliss. Srini, you have so many questions. You said you'll ask. You don't do anything today or tomorrow or Sunday.
Yeah, Namaste Vidyaji. I reserved it to Sunday. Like
Okay.
individual classes, I'm listening only the content of the class. This is like a overall question, so that's why I don't want to disturb these individual sessions.
Okay. Then fine. I can understand that. Right.
But in today's class, I have one small comment that when for example, the Vaishnavas say that Naham Karta, Hari Karta Iva Kevalam. So that is that is enough for this shloka. Do you think they are removing the doership from themselves?
No, they are removing the doership, but then they are thinking that Hari is the one who is making through them to do it. They are not coming to an akartrutva bhava. They are having the kartrutva, but they are saying that their individuality is not working, but the Hari is making them function through them, and then they become the doers. That is different from Advaitic approach.
Okay. Thank you, Binduji. That's the only thing I was thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Srini. Namaste, Ganesh.
Om Namaskar. Yeah, my question regarding moksha. I mean, if you have time
Moksha.
now. Like, what does the different scriptural teachings say regarding it? And you can take one today, and next time again I will ask the same question.
Ganesh, can you come on Sunday? I'll take it on Sunday. I'll explain that from the three philosophical point of view.
Okay, sir.
Thank you, Ganesh. Since nobody is there, we'll stop early, Prakash.
Doji, today was a deep manana on, I call it the pedagogy of ego dissolution, but so precisely articulated through the language of Adi Shankaracharya. So big pranam to Adi Shankaracharya and to Bindoji for guiding us through this very deep deconstruction of the ahankara. Thank you everyone for coming, and tomorrow we'll meet again at 8:30 p.m. IST, where we'll continue on Chapter 3. Bindoji will be guiding us further. For the replays, as I mentioned earlier, they're available on Clubhouse, or you can go to the link shared in the chat on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. Again, thank you very much, Bindoji. Over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash, Venkat, Ganesh, Srinivas, and all of you there. Please listen to this room once more before coming tomorrow's class, because there is a continuation of this. So I don't have to repeat from today's thing to go for tomorrow. So if you all listen to it once more, then it will make easier for me to. So you will also have the continuity. See you all tomorrow, the same time. Hari Om. Good night.
Good night. Hari Om.